Welcome back once again, all of my low carb friends, and for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Today I have another very easy keto breakfast recipe for you. Today I am going to show you how to make very easy keto Pop-Tarts. These are great because not only are they easy, but once you learn how to make the dough, you can put any filling you want. You can make these sweet, you can make these savory, whatever you want. Use your imagination. The sky is the limit. And if you want a printable version of this recipe, you can check out my website at janetsdeliciousLowCarbKitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this recipe and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see lots of easy, delicious, low-carb keto recipes, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the notification bell that's right next to the subscribe button. That way you can be notified every time I put out videos, at least every Wednesday and Saturday. And if you'd like to help support the channel, make sure you scroll down in the description of the video. You'll see some affiliate links. Anytime you purchase anything using those affiliate links, a small portion of your purchase will go to me and help support the channel. So while you do all that, let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Take 2 large baking sheets and set them aside for a minute. In a large mixing bowl, combine 112 grams or around 1 cup of coconut flour, 84 grams or around 7 tablespoons of the granulated sweetener of your choice. I'm using granulated monk fruit sweetener. You can use whatever granulated sweetener you want. You can also adjust this more or less depending on how sweet you want the dough part of your Pop-Tarts. Add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And if you want to, you can add some dry spices or dry seasonings of your choice to give the dough a little bit more flavor, and it'll help balance out any coconut flour taste if you're sensitive to coconut flour taste. Sift everything all together until everything is fully combined and there are no lumps in the dry ingredients. Add 3 large room temperature eggs. Make sure they are room temperature so they stir in smoothly. You can also use flax eggs or chia eggs or any egg substitute of choice if you want to keep this egg free. Stir the eggs into the dry ingredients until everything is fully combined and all the dry ingredients are moist. Add 10 tablespoons of butter that's been melted and cooled. Make sure it is cooled. You do not want to add hot butter. If you want to keep this dairy-free, you can use melted coconut oil or any other butter substitute of your choice. Add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract or the extract of your choice. You can adjust or change the extract according to your personal taste. Stir everything together until everything is fully combined and a dough begins to form. Sprinkle in 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum, or you can use psyllium husk powder or very fine flax or chia seed meal. This is just going to give your dough some flexibility and help it to bind better so that when you go to actually assemble the Pop-Tarts, your dough can have some stretch to it and not tear or fall apart on you. Add about 1 tablespoon of room temperature water. Then stir everything together until everything is fully combined and a smooth dough forms. Now the amount of water you need to use may vary just a tiny bit depending on the texture of your coconut flour. Basically, you're just wanting to add enough water so that your ingredients come together and form a smooth dough. So just add it in small amounts, maybe a teaspoon at a time, just until your dough comes together and forms a smooth ball. Once a smooth dough has formed, scrape down the sides of the bowl and push the dough to the center of the bowl, then form the dough into a ball. Then we're going to test the dough and make sure we have the right texture of dough. Massage the dough in your hands just for a few seconds. Then take a small portion of the dough in your hand and roll it around until it forms a smooth, tight ball. Your dough is going to be moist, a little bit sticky, but it should not be sticking to your hands at all. And it should be able to form a ball and hold its shape very easily. If it seems like it is sticking to your fingers and like it's too moist, then just add very, very small amounts of coconut flour until it comes together and holds its shape in a smooth ball. If it seems too dry and as you're massaging it, pieces are crumbling off and it's not holding together, then just add very, very small amounts of room temperature water until, again, the dough comes together and forms a smooth, tight ball and holds its shape. Once you're sure you have the right texture of dough, then form it back into a ball and place it back into your mixing bowl. Line a clean work surface with parchment paper. Then place the dough into the center of the parchment paper. Cover the dough with another piece of parchment paper. Then press or roll the dough out to a rectangle that's around a 1/4 inch thick or your desired thickness. I've told you guys many times before, I have bad shoulders, so instead of using a rolling pin, I just divide my dough into portions and use my tortilla press to press it out. And then I form it into a rectangle once it's been pressed out. Keep in mind that you don't want to roll this dough out too thin. This is a moist, slightly sticky dough and it's very fragile. So the thinner you roll your dough out, the harder it's going to be to handle and the more likely it will be to tear before it's baked. Once it's baked, this is very sturdy, but before it's baked, this dough is pretty fragile. Once your dough is rolled out to a rectangle, then cut the dough into smaller rectangles that are around 3 inches by 4 inches in size, or you can cut the rectangle into whatever desired size you're going to want your Pop-Tarts. So if you want your Pop-Tarts a little bit bigger, make them a little bit bigger. If you want them a little bit smaller, make them a little bit smaller. For me, 3 by 4 is perfect. Make sure you keep your rectangles on strips of parchment paper at all times. What I like to do is I like to take 2 rectangles, put them on a strip of parchment paper, then set that strip aside, and then put another 2 rectangles on a strip of parchment paper until I've cut all the rectangles and have them in pairs on strips of parchment paper. And you'll see why you want the parchment paper in strips in a little bit when we go to the assembling part of it. So once your rectangles are all cut into your desired size, then if you haven't already, place 2 rectangles side by side on a strip of parchment paper. Then spoon about 1 tablespoon of keto preserves or keto jam or any type of keto filling of your choice into the center of one of the rectangles. Then use the back of a spoon or your fingers and just spread the filling evenly over the rectangle. Make sure you leave about a 1/2 inch space or so around the edges so that when you go to seal the rectangles together, you won't have any filling squishing out the sides. So do not overfill your Pop-Tart. Then grasp the side of the parchment paper that's next to the plain rectangle. Use the paper as a guide and guide the plain rectangle over the filling and gently press the edges together so it can seal the dough. Make sure as you are doing this, you are keeping the dough smooth at all times. You do not want any cracks. Make sure when you are sealing the edges that you are sealing up the cracks all the way around. You don't want your filling to gush out at any time while it's baking. Once the dough is all sealed and smooth around the filling, use the back of a fork and gently press just the tips of the fork prongs around the edges of the Pop-Tart. This is just going to help completely seal all the edges of your Pop-Tart. Be careful not to push the sharp tips into the dough because you don't want to create holes. You're just wanting to have that little crimped edge look around the outside of the Pop-Tart. Then once the Pop-Tart is all sealed, keep it on your strip of parchment paper and grasp the edges of the parchment paper and transfer it to your baking sheet that you've set aside earlier. This is why we didn't line the baking sheet in the beginning, and this is why I was saying earlier that it's best to have your parchment paper in strips. When you are shaping and cutting, it is a fragile dough, so make sure you keep the parchment paper attached to it at all times and use that parchment paper to guide your dough and to transfer it anywhere you're needing to transfer it. Keep that parchment paper as your guide. If you want to make the dough a little bit easier to handle after you've cut your dough into rectangles and before you start putting the filling on the rectangles, then place another piece of parchment paper over the top of your rectangle, then turn the paper over. This will help loosen the rectangle from off the dough. Then you just gently peel the paper off of the back of the dough, and this will help your dough to release a little bit easier once it's all filled and shaped. Keep repeating the feeling and sealing process until all of your dough is used and all your Pop-Tarts are shaped and placed on your baking sheet. Make sure when you place these on your baking sheet that you're leaving a little bit of space between each one of the Pop-Tarts. These do not rise or expand. They have no rising agents in them. But you do want to keep space in between so that the air can evenly circulate and you can have an even cook around all of your Pop-Tarts. Once the Pop-Tarts have been all shaped and they are placed on your baking sheet, then place them in your preheated oven. Bake at 400 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes or until the Pop-Tarts are golden. Once the Pop-Tarts are done baking, remove them from the oven, allow them to cool on the pan for at least 10 minutes so that they can firm up and the filling can settle in. After 10 minutes, transfer the Pop-Tarts to a wire rack. Now you can eat these warm and just plain just as they are, or you can allow them to cool completely and eat them at room temperature. I like to glaze them, so if you like to glaze them, you definitely have to let them cool to room temperature. If you want to glaze them, that recipe will be in the written recipe on my website, and the link to that will be in the description of this video. I am back. I have glazed my Pop-Tarts. I let them sit overnight so the glaze can soak in really good. This one has the brown sugar cinnamon filling that is in the written recipe on my website. This one here has strawberry, just sugar-free strawberry preserves is what I put into it. I cut it open so you can kind of see what the middle of it looks like. The strawberry one I have at room temperature. The brown sugar cinnamon one I put in the toaster to see how it would hold up. I wouldn't advise putting it in the toaster. As you can see, it got a little too toasty and that was on my lowest setting. So my advice would be if you do want these warmed up to pop them in your microwave for like 5-10 seconds. They will take no time at all to heat up. So that's the one thing that's a little weird about these. But we'll see how they taste. So let's try the warmed one first to see how that one's gonna taste. Very toasty on the edges, but hey, live and learn, right? Let's see. Actually, I don't think I really need a fork. That's good. I like the brown sugar cinnamon filling. I love cinnamon. Yep. Even though it is extra toasty around the edges, it actually doesn't taste bad. It just gives it a little bit of toasty flavor. I mean, doesn't taste bad, honestly. So that one's a winner. Also, I should mention that when it was in the toaster, I don't know if it was because of the glaze or what, but it did soften up. So getting it out of the toaster, it was soft getting out of the toaster. Once it started to cool, it firmed back up. But that was kind of weird too. So that's another reason why I advise just warming it in the microwave a little bit instead of your toaster. It gets kind of funky in the toaster. So let's see what it tastes like at room temperature. Let's see. I actually kind of like that better. I think I prefer the strawberry filling, and I think I prefer it at room temperature. Weird, but they're both yummy. You can eat these immediately, warm or at room temperature, or you can store them in an airtight container at room temperature for up to 3 days, or store them in an airtight container in your refrigerator for up to 1 week, or you can wrap each one individually and store them in a freezer-safe bag or a freezer-safe container in your freezer for up to 3 months. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you click that thumbs up like button, click that subscribe button, leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.